Good evening, everybody. I'm calling the Tuesday, November 7th, 2023 meeting of the Londonderry Utilities Committee to order. Just a quick reminder before we get into it. Two exits to the conference room. One at the back, one over here right off of our left side. And if there is an emergency, please proceed to the closest exit to you and wait outside for our public safety people to give us direction as to returning to the conference room. And with that, I'd like to have the Pledge of Allegiance, like to lead the group in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you all for attending tonight. Mike Speltz is traveling tonight, so Mike will not be with us. I have not heard from Ann Fenn, so I probably expect her to show up at some point in time. But in the meantime, I'm going to appoint Joy to vote for Mike, and Ray Breslin to vote for Ann until Ann shows up. And we had a question just on procedure coming from our last meeting and with alternates voting. And the way I'd like to proceed is to have the alternate sit in on whatever matter is being discussed. And when that is done, then the formal member will take over for the rest of the meeting.
For those who show up late.
For those who show up late. Yep. So I think it'll work just fine. So Ray, you'll be voting for Ann until she shows up. And Joy, you'll be voting for Mike for the duration of the meeting. Okay, we have our first agenda item is having public comment. Anybody from the public who shows up who has something to say. Seeing tonight, we have no members of the public with us. So we will move on from that. And moving into administrative work, first item is the approval of the October minutes. Everybody, I hope, has had a chance to see the minutes. I'd like to take a motion for their approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the October minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the October minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the minutes are approved. John, thank you again for doing the minutes. So it's a
Trying to get them
thankless
quicker.
job, so thank you
Trying to
very
get it
much.
quick next time. Getting there. And give it to Kristen, right?
Kirsten.
Kristen.
Yep.
No, I can never get it.
Moving on, discussions with staff. Mike, anything tonight?
I don't have anything to report, but I'm happy to address anything that the board has or answer any questions.
Okay. With that, the board have any questions for the town manager?
Is Mike staying for the?
I'll stay. Yep.
Okay, a little further down.
Okay.
We can do it when we talk about the water meeting.
Okay.
I have a question. Have you heard anything about the application we submitted to the Drinking Water Trust Fund?
Yes, actually, this is something that, as you can imagine, there are a lot of behind-the-scenes discussions that are taking place, and I certainly don't want to air those out in public. But what I can tell you is that I have been speaking with the chairman and think it would be appropriate to invite the leadership of the board to a Zoom meeting that we're having on the 14th of this month. And that will involve all the stakeholders involved in that project. St. Gobain, Pennachuck, DES, the town of Londonderry, our engineering consultant. And I think we will be, that will be the first opportunity that the town has had, at least recently, to interact directly with St. Gobain. And two, I think it will allow us to flesh out some of the details of the application and where we need to go with it.
When you say the leadership, just Lynn Wiles, or can somebody on the water committee also go?
So I would suggest the chair and the vice chair. There's already 100 people on the call, so we certainly don't want to create a quorum or anything like that, but I think that, subject to the the chairman's discretion, I think would be most appropriate.
Okay.
Will we
And-
be able to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What time?
I'll send out the invite.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll-
thank you.
Will it be recorded so the rest of us can see it at a later time?
I don't believe the meeting will be recorded, no.
We'll
But-
report back. though.
I can tell you that the way that, we handle these things at the town council level, in other boards and commissions is, it's really on the members who are participating to accurately report back. And I think that, I don't have any concerns about that occurring here.
I like to see when they frown, get upset. Like, why'd you ask that question?
They'll
They're
have to
after
ask
me
them
again.
to add some commentary about that.
So whose meeting is that, Mike? Is that DES's meeting? Who's the chair of that meeting?
That is a good question. That is a meeting that is occurring between St. Gobain and the town at DES's urging. So there isn't a creator, there isn't really a chair of the thing. I have taken the lead on coordinating, getting everybody to participate. But as I said, the genesis of this meeting is really encouragement from DES that St. Gobain and the town talk about the High Range Road project and the scope of it.
Yep.
Excuse me, I believe I have a question. And that is, in regards to St. Gobain. Does anyone have any authority to make them move forward on any of this? Meaning the Attorney General primarily.
So by any of this, you're referring to the work occurring within the consent decree, either to remediate wells by point of entry treatment system or by water line extension?
Yes?
Yes, the Attorney General has authority under the terms of the consent decree, but also other authority to hold potentially responsible parties responsible and accountable for contamination, and that's what's occurring.
Have you personally had discussions with the Attorney General?
Yes.
And what do you get back from him? I mean, are they willing to move forward to hold them responsible?
Yes, a lot of our discussions with DES and with the Attorney General have been seeking to understand the reasoning behind the consent decree, as well as the administration of the consent decree, how it is being administered. I believe that we understand the reasoning. I believe that we understand how it's being administered. And neither DES nor the Attorney General has given us any indication that they take this anything less than seriously or that they are doing anything other than proceeding and enforcing the terms of the consent decree.
Yeah, but I have a concern, and that is that unfortunately, Londonderry was not part of the original consent decree in 2016, I believe. And so that consent decree affects things west of High Range Road.
Correct.
Right. And whether or not St. Gobain's wants to just put in filtration systems and that's it, they could say that, okay, and walk away. In regards to the water line, I think we're more concerned with that, getting municipal water into the town of Londonderry. And I'm not sure we have the authority to force them to do that. That would come from higher up, and that would be the Attorney General, I believe, along with the New Hampshire Health Department and others.
So I think there's a couple of questions there. One is the breakdown of POET system to water line extensions. That is something that is defined by the consent decree, that there is an interaction between St. Gobain and DES and the Attorney General's office, whereby St. Gobain proposed that breakdown. So we're going to do this number of poets in these areas and this number of water line extensions in these other areas. And the state had the opportunity to say yes or no. The state, in this case, said, yes, that sounds appropriate to us. And that is what we're operating under. In other words, I have no indication that the state is going to allow Saint-Gobain out of that. And I have no indication that Saint-Gobain is seeking to get out of that. On the contrary, when I spoke with Saint-Gobain, they were looking to work in partnership with the town on the project that we're proposing. As far as the legal authority that the town might have to enforce the consent decree, you're correct. It is certainly the case that we do not have legal authority to enforce the consent decree. We do not have, as has been discussed previously, authority to litigate or assert claims on behalf of our residents for contamination, because the town is not damaged as a municipal government. It would be different if we had a water system, if there was a municipal water system, and Londonderry's government needed to pay money to remediate that water system. That's not the case here. Pennachuck may have a claim against Saint-Gobain, but the town of Londonderry does not on behalf of its citizens for that. So you're correct in your statement of the law.
Yeah, but the situation has moved beyond what happened in 2016 with the consent decree, which Londonderry was not part of, okay? The situation has changed from that point. So I think we should have some input as to what does happen as far as, let's say, the Attorney General moving forward as to what we allow them to do or not to do. If we're saying what was settled in the consent decree of 2016, that's not the situation now. We have learned a lot more about the contamination in the town of Londonderry. And so I think we strongly need to have input with New Hampshire DES, with the Attorney General and others.
Ray, can I maybe rephrase the question a little bit? Just give me
Sure,
a shot at it.
go ahead.
What can be done for the people who have been affected?
Right.
That's the basic question.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So a couple of things. One is, you're exactly correct. The situation is different. We do know a lot more. The standard has changed twice now, one at the state level and proposed at the federal level. So that's different. And number two, there's been a lot more sampling, and I think we understand that the scope of the problem is broader than we first understood. What can we do to help residents, or how can Londonderry use its resources and influence? By doing this project. This project is important that we've talked about, running this water line extension, not only upsizing the pipe that Saint-Gobain has been planning, but also extending it much farther down High Range Road to 102. That project's important for a couple of reasons. One, it is the foundation of the town's water system, of a town-wide water system. This is really the cornerstone of that. And if and when the town is prepared to do that, this work is essential. Two, it's important because it incentivizes, or it will facilitate Saint-Gobain doing what it is currently proposing to do under the consent decree. We are participating in that project, and this is ensuring that work gets done so that they can extend those water lines out that they're currently proposing to extend. More importantly, perhaps, it is encouraging or incentivizing, I believe, Saint-Gobain or the town at some point in time to extend water lines within the consent decree where Saint-Gobain is not currently proposing them. By running the main all the way down High Range Road, we are hopefully going to change the calculus of, does it make sense for Saint-Gobain to run water, or does it make sense for them to do a poet? Saint-Gobain's willing to pay a premium for water because they're not required to maintain the water line into perpetuity. They are required to do that for the poets. And if we're running a water main right by residences where currently they're proposing poets, hopefully this will incentivize them to do more water line connections.
Makes sense.
It is certainly a moving target, though. Definitely. And I think that's the challenge I see is trying to stay on top of what's happening.
Exactly. It's changing almost by the day. Assembling the funding puzzle is not straightforward, but, the state is very excited about this project, which I think bodes well for our application.
Okay, great.
Well, we here in the town of Londonderry do have the requirements for the Drinking Water and Groundwater Trust Fund to provide some of that money, but they're not going to supply it all.
Correct.
And the town taxpayers are not going to supply it all either.
Correct.
And what amount can we expect to ask for from the town taxpayers? I mean, that's going to be a ticklish point there. And until the finances get decided, nobody's going to be digging anything in the ground and putting
Correct.
any pipes in the ground.
Exactly right.
Penachuk isn't going to do that because,
They can't.
well, they're not going to because they're business people.
Right.
Okay? Unless they can prove that they're going to make the money back, they're not going to invest in that. You know, and that's understandable. So, I think we just need to keep on top of it.
Absolutely. And the money is always the multi-million-dollar question, right?
It is, and, what I could tell you is, as I've told the town council, we have applied for a $10 million grant through the trust fund. It's a $25 million project roughly when we include the work that St. Gobain is going to be doing. And we are proposing to use $2 million in ARPA funding that we have on hand that was not raised through taxation and does not affect the taxes. We're proposing to use that as Londonderry's share. Now, as I said to the town council, that may change. I expect it to change in our consultations with DES, with Penachuk, with St. Gobain. But if we could get a $25 million project for $2 million or even $4 million, I think that's a very good deal, particularly because it sets us up to take care of this water project in the most heavily contaminated area of town over time as we're ready.
Great. Anything else for Mike?
What do you do the other 60 hours of the week?
It's been busy lately, yeah.
Just one other question in regards to a warrant article. Are we proposing, is the town proposing to ask for money for this in a warrant article in March?
I believe that some appropriation will be necessary in March, yes.
I think perhaps it would be appropriate to ask for some amount, but what that is,
Correct. My expectation is that we will end up needing to ask for something. And, it's noteworthy that there have been two warrant articles, one on each of the last two town ballots, testing support for either water expansion in the abstract or $100,000 to study the issue, and both have passed overwhelmingly. So I do think that there's support there for reasonable investments in this.
And later in the agenda too, we're gonna talk about, hopefully working with the planning department, about putting together a strategy that we can start working into the next update of the master plan as well. And I think that's a critical step that we as a committee can undertake and help drive this whole discussion,
Right.
Give the citizens of the town an idea of what are we looking at, because I still think there's a lot of misconceptions out there as to what the end game, the end goal is going to be with this
Well,
whole
yeah, and I
project
think
process.
it's only fair to the general public to give them an idea of what the town is looking at moving forward.
Yep.
Not just next year, but looking out 5, 10 years.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Well, that's right, and in the immediate term, and Representative Dunn, is critical to this effort. We are very cognizant of the need to publicize what's happening and make sure that people understand it, and that's going to be occurring once we have this call and we understand a little bit better where we're headed. Having a meeting with DES and making sure that the public has the opportunity to ask questions, that it's publicized, and that we can get our message out. And I think this committee is important in that effort as well.
Do we have any such thing as an overall water plan for the town of Londonderry?
So that's an interesting question. The answer is we have plans. We have a water resources plan. We have 2 studies that have been conducted by Weston and Sampson for DES, but also intended to be shared with the town, that study, one, the supply issue. Where would the water come from? What would the source be? And 2, what would a fully built-out water system look like in Londonderry?
Yeah.
Those plans exist. They're not at the design level, but they evaluate that in concept in pretty good detail.
and by the way, we also have a water quality and a water quantity study that was done in 2019 that has some very good information in there that I think we really need to open up and look at.
I agree.
We need to take advantage of that. I mean, we paid for it, it was done well, and we really should take advantage of it.
I agree. And if I can just refer to a map quickly. So this is High Range Road here, if you can see that. We're talking about, again, running the water line extension all the way down, even south of where my cursor is, to 102. This is, the consent decree, and here, just across the street is an equally contaminated area. I would call this probably the most contaminated area in town outside the consent decree. And so my vision is that following the completion of this project, the next step should be developing a plan to run water into these neighborhoods to take care of that issue. These are the people who need it the most. I think that's the next phase, that at least as far as I can anticipate it.
At a later time, can somebody explain to me, the new guy, how did that one spot get so contaminated?
Well,
You don't have to explain it now, but.
Yeah, I don't, in terms of like how airborne deposition works, I don't know, but what I can tell you is that this area here is probably just as contaminated, but it's the Musquash, and nobody lives there. So we don't have sampling information for that area. And then, there's much more contamination here than there is over here on the Derry line. So as it blows over towards Derry, it seems like it dissipates quite a bit more.
and by the way, all those,
Go that far when they were looking at it.
I know.
Yeah.
all the
road is
water
not yellow.
testing has been done. It is a matter of record. The DES has it, and I'm sure the town has it too. So all of that information is available, and it is in different areas of town, okay? So,
But I think we start educating people, more people may start testing their water that was tested outside of the original area. That's why I specifically asked that question.
well, yeah.
And that's my
Right.
concern.
Right, and it's it's not like you test and you're done. You could test negative one year and then be positive the next year. So, and this is this is available online. This is the DES publicly available sampling map. Every well that's tested should, for the most part, be reflected here, and you can see this is the concentration that I'm talking about here. Not only, a cluster of exceedances, but also a lot of orange, which is a higher concentration.
But you can also see reds in other areas of town.
That's correct. I mean, particularly around the Apple Tree Mall, and we know about that, and this is the Tinkham area as well. You do see a few red dots here and there in town, but nowhere near like in Merrimack and in this area.
All airborne, they think, not groundwater penetration.
Well,
I think it gets into the, well.
That's how we got here.
Correct, yes. I think that is that is the understanding that the consent decree is premised on, I believe. Yes. And that's how DES explains it.
Good, thank you. Good information, Mike, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Moving on, subcommittee discussions. First up is the Energy Subcommittee. So we've got a few things going on here, and Mike will need your input on a couple of these as well, but the Community Power Aggregation Plan and where we stand with that and what you see as the next steps.
Yes, that's undergoing a legal review. Legal reviews don't always occur as quickly as you would like, and that's where we are right now, but that is in the pipeline. And I think the next step after that comes back is probably the public hearings.
Right.
My understanding is that Freedom handles all of that, that it's low impact on the town, on this board or on the town staff. But those are those statutorily required hearings that need to occur before the town can adopt a plan. I believe you signed a document that was for filing with the PUC.
It was a document signifying our intent to move forward with
Correct.
the project with Colonial Power and FEL.
So I think we can officially say that the thing is in motion and it's moving forward.
Yep. And, Colonial will be preparing the backup, the slide deck to be presented at the public hearings. I would like to schedule one when we're ready to go. One, let's have the first one with the town council. The second one we may want to have over at the cafeteria on a Saturday morning or
Yeah.
something like that.
Absolutely.
And I think that's how I'd like to proceed with that. But moving forward with that, and I still think it's a good project for the town.
I agree. I agree. And I would just emphasize that, the town will have the final ability to say yes or no when we know what the offering would be and what the
Yep.
prices would be.
Yep, absolutely.
can I ask one question on that? Do you have any concerns as town manager that Colonial was not part of the original agreement that the town had with Freedom? Like, we don't know how Colonial got in there other than an arrangement between Freedom and Colonial.
It's the first time that the question's been put to me. I mean, I can tell you that, yes, I think you're correct that our agreement is with Freedom. I don't know if Colonial is referenced. I think that the way I would look at that is Freedom can consult with whoever Freedom needs to consult with in order to make sure that they can fulfill their obligations under our contract with them. So that would be my quick answer.
Yeah, so we would have Freedom, we would go to Freedom if we had any issues.
Correct.
Yeah, okay,
Correct.
And they also said they would document for us the relationship, who owns what, so.
okay.
Yeah, I think the original contract referenced Colonial, not by name, but as a partner that they would be going to work with, so.
And I would imagine that the PUC would want clarity on that.
Yeah,
I'm not a utility lawyer, but I would imagine that they would have that question as well.
Okay.
Have we seen that original contract? Do we have that original contract?
Yep.
Yes.
It's just a page,
And you-
it's just a two-pager.
Yeah.
yep.
It's very simple.
So is Colonial
No.
in there?
No, not as a direct reference.
Okay, so I think the question came up at the last meeting is, how much of this is Colonial going to handle versus Freedom?
And they
Who's
said-
going to do what?
And they said they would document it, yes.
They're gonna document
They
that,
said they
but
were gonna document it,
Well, okay, so when they come back, they will explain that.
right.
Yep. And there is a matrix they have put together specifying who is responsible for what specific activities. So that they have
And we
done that.
still have Freedom on the line.
That's right. If,
Freedom, if anything happens
Correct,
with it, we go to Freedom and say,
I
You know,
I view
God
Freedom as,
forbid.
I view Freedom as a general contractor.
right,
right.
And Colonial as a subcontractor. That's how I view
of
it.
Freedom.
Yeah, to
You
freedom.
wouldn't hear, but I think my question was, who's neck to my ring?
Yeah, freedom. Yeah.
Freedom.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think when we hear back from legal review, we'll have a discussion then about scheduling the meetings and, or the public, or the public hearings, and then we'll see what we can do for getting the content ahead of time, and we'll review the content before we go into the public hearings. I want to make sure we've had a chance to fully vet that
Yeah.
ourselves before we do anything going forward.
Could I say something else on that also? Who's going to decide that we're moving forward with that? Is the town council? The town council is going to decide?
I believe that authority would reside with the town council, yes.
Okay, and the reason I ask that is I know with some towns that are also dealing with power aggregation, that they are putting it on a warrant article so that the people can vote on it.
Correct. So that's the difference between an open town meeting form of government and the town council form of government. The town council has all of the authority of the town meeting, minus the ability to approve a budget or a bond. And you do see that occurring in towns which, for instance, require voter approval for a zoning amendment. And it's just a difference in the form of government.
Okay, I just think it's a pretty big decision for a lot of people that would have to decide whether they want to be part of it or not.
I see your point, but the way I would respond to that is, the voters who adopted the town charter, I think, saw the benefit of a modern, efficient form of government that would vest those legislative powers in the town council. I would point out that the town council has used those powers sparingly, by putting a lot of questions on the ballot that technically don't need to be put on the ballot, such as adding positions. Such as, support for landscaping work to clean up the old SAU building. I think a question like, I would agree with you that this has the potential to be an important thing for the town, but there's an opt-out. And so I think people can vote with their feet if they aren't interested in participating in this.
Yep.
Plus, the council will have the benefit of the hearings,
Correct.
Yes.
feedback from the hearings and so forth and so on. So,
And they usually get a lot of feedback. They want
Oh,
to get
yes.
the public feedback.
So ultimately, or potentially, it's going to be to the benefit of everyone.
It either will be.
That's the idea, right?
Yeah, it
That's
either
the
will be to
idea.
the benefit of everyone, or we won't do it, in which case, we're only out the effort.
Thank you.
Next topic would be the Twin States Clean Energy Link. So the Twin States Clean Energy Link, they were here a few months ago and described the process or their project about bringing hydropower down from Quebec and having it terminate at a substation in Londonderry. So they did receive federal funding to move ahead with that project. And I don't know the specifics of where they're at, Paul. I don't know if you have had a chance to take a look at the details there.
I've read some of the details. This is early on in the whole
Yep.
process. Funding is a big part of their decision. I think they need to evaluate, how do I say it? The likelihood of that funding.
Yep.
Things change in Washington a lot. Because it's a long process between now and actually putting a shovel in the ground. You've got a lot of engineering, you've got a lot of community relation work, you've got a lot of work ahead of themselves. So, as I understand it, construction probably might start in 2026,
I think that's what they were talking about.
maybe 2027, depending on issues or whatever.
How long,
So,
how long is construction? Couple of years?
depends on the design.
Yeah, right.
Whenever you go on the ground in the Grant State,
Takes a while.
you just don't know what you're gonna run into, so.
Yeah, my recollection is they were talking going online in 2030 if everything went according to what they
Yeah,
had hoped.
I had a timeline of 4-year construction
Yeah.
and testing and, getting it energized.
So, Mike, at what point in time do you think it would make sense to bring them back here and give us an updated status?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that what we were waiting for was this step, which was,
Right.
are they even going to be awarded the funding? They have been. That actually moved a little bit faster than I was anticipating, but I don't, know how this works typically. I think that anytime you want to have them back would probably, make sense. I don't see any need to rush it. I think that this is, going to be a lengthy process. The one thing I will note is, of possible interest is, we were approached by this group, Hilltop, and there's some kind of grant funding that's associated with this. It's outside the context of that community benefit package that they talked about, but there's some grant funding through, I think, the statute that authorized the funding for this project. And they had asked if we had interest in applying. It was a pretty quick application process, but one of the things that I mentioned to them, and it seemed to fit, was the potential to upgrade the power line leading to the Auburn Road landfill.
Right.
And so we may put in an application just to see if we can grab the $1 million I think that it would take to do that, just on the theory that you don't get it if you don't ask.
Right.
Excuse me, who's Hilltop?
They're the community relations people for Twin States.
So they were here, when they were here back in July, that was, so they were here.
Okay. I thought Twin State was working for National Grid.
Yeah,
A lot of players.
Now we got someone else?
Another partner.
Another partner.
Yeah, there's a lot of players.
You know,
So they were
it's just beginning,
they were the
trust me.
face of the project.
you gotta connect the,
There'll be,
Yeah.
there'll be public relation firms, there'll be engineering firms, there'll be all kinds of folks involved in this project.
Environmental impact firm.
Environmental impact firms, right?
I mean, that would be a perk that they would offer to us. That would be a perk, that if they were allowed to come into Londonderry and do everything that they say they want to do,
yeah.
Londonderry would say, well, okay, we'll agree, but you've got to negotiate a deal to bring this.
Yeah, I
I think
understand
it
about
sounds good
perks.
to me.
There's a lot of money that I think will be available if and when we get to that point.
My question is, they said this is gonna save the ratepayer trillions of dollars. I wonder where they come up with that figure.
Well,
I mean, it's a nice figure. Nice,
they're always going to say they're going
Yeah.
to save the rate.
yeah,
Well,
I'll
it
believe
saves me
that when I see
$100
it,
on
you
it.
know what I mean? You know?
It's a futuristic projection based on a whole bunch of assumptions. And
Yep.
all I know about these studies is that we're all gonna be wrong in the end. It's more of a how wrong are you
Yeah.
gonna be, and
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I've done these kinds of studies on power lines before in the past, and usually it's power here is X, 10 cents a kilowatt hour, power here is 5 cents a kilowatt hour, and then you do the math and say we can buy it at 5 and sell it at 7, and we're gonna save these guys 3 cents a kilowatt hour, and then you do a bunch of math and you say you're gonna save a bunch of money. I mean, that is a kindergarten version of 17 spreadsheets that all interlink and.
Yeah,
wheeling and dealing.
yes, that's what it is.
Acceptance, population increase, yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah,
you typically look to the fuel source of where the power will come from.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's hydro.
well,
And historically, hydro, one, is fairly stable in terms of pricing and so forth.
Yeah.
And the Canadian reserves for hydro are significant in the LeGrand area and all of that, so.
it's kind of a shame we don't get the full benefit of the hydro we have here in New Hampshire. But that's been sold off.
I understand that, that's,
Would have been nice to use, local hydropower.
at one time we did.
Rather than shipping it in from Canada.
Yeah,
'cause
one
they got
time we
plenty.
did. Unfortunately, the rivers in New Hampshire aren't like Oregon or Washington or a lot of other states.
Well, no,
Where they
no,
have multiple, dozens of rivers and they're significant rivers.
well, New Hampshire is known as the mother of rivers, so,
Okay,
you know,
fair enough.
they do have some value.
So stay tuned.
Yep, absolutely, stay tuned. Any other, any other questions on that before we move on?
Drones fly
Okay.
from China with their new coal-burning largest in the world plant, right? Honest to
Yeah.
God.
So the last item I have under energy, John Mann had brought up a discussion point at our last meeting regarding a heating oil and propane, a community aggregation project. John, I don't know if you had any more time to think about that.
Yeah.
Mike and I did talk about that, and I think it's, at this point in time, we really need more information to go forward with that project. I think there's, I don't think the town wants to get into a position at this point in time to compete against individual companies who may be in the oil distribution business, or to have that perception. So I think we would really need to take a look at how it works and who's involved and some of the details there.
Yeah, as well as any regulatory requirements that might be a barrier to entry.
Yep, yep. So, you know, the electricity that we talked about just earlier, that's all set up by statute at this point in time, but I don't believe there's any statutes covering the distribution or the community aggregation programs
that's a good
for,
point.
for heating oil or for propane.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research. I could not find another town at this point that is involved in aggregating oil. But looking at the companies that do that now, and basically, they utilize local oil companies to make the deliveries, so we're not exactly competing with them, that's part of the distribution chain. But looking at those companies, the biggest that they seem to be working with right now, a number of them have condo associations and things, and if you're not familiar with just in general how these work, Mike, you make a commitment to buy a number of gallons of heating oil. Based on that, you know, they're offering you a price at that. Depending on who you're with, you either pre-buy it at a more favorable price, or you pay over the course of the year on a monthly basis at usually a slightly higher price. You pay some sort of an annual fee, $20, $30. It seems to be in that low, less than $50 range to belong to the association or whatever they happen to be calling themselves. And then you proceed. And just my personal experience has been over the course of 3 years association with one particular outfit. The first 2 years, I always came out a winner. Last year, I was a winner in November, and by May, you could buy it cheaper off the street than you could buy it on my pre-buy. So there is an element of risk involved. It's not all gravy. And you sent me a number of questions, Lynn,
Yep.
and I could not find, as I said, a town that's currently doing this. But it was an interesting thing to look at because I think there are a number of ways we could approach this. One would be to do nothing, obviously, okay? A second would be to get wholesale into competing with private companies, which I don't think is desirable. We don't want to look at the infrastructure required to do that and everything else. But another way might be to get these companies in, much as you've gotten the electric companies in to talk to us and tell us a little bit more about themselves. Because frankly, right now, we're beyond the point of doing anything for this heating season. We're talking about the next buy-in for this is May or June of next year for the following heating season. So we have time to explore and see what we might be interested in. At the end of the day, maybe worst-case situation is, just in talking to neighbors, there's a general lack of knowledge of the existence of these kinds of programs out there. And just as the Department of Energy currently publishes on a periodic basis oil heating prices, and they put a fairly comprehensive list out there as an education for somebody that's doing research on where they're getting their oil, we could approach this from an educational standpoint of making the names of some of these associations known. I don't know how much of their information they'll release to us in terms of fees and the discounts and their contract price when the contracts are available, but But if that's as far as we really want to go, which would be short of sort of marrying up with somebody and saying, hey, we endorse such and such a company, we could pursue that route. So, but I think the very first step on all this stuff is, your first question is a legal opinion on how deeply can we get into this? Okay, you know, where is the line? Once we know where the line is, we can decide how close you want to come to that line.
Right, that would be my primary concern, would be, is this a permissible activity for a government to be engaged in? And then secondarily, what would the regulatory requirements be? Would that make us, you know, subject to a bunch of PUC regulations that might be onerous, or that we just need to know those two things, I think.
How do we find that out, Mike? Excuse me, Rick.
I can certainly ask for some legal guidance on that. I think just a cursory legal opinion. I really wouldn't want to get too far down into the weeds in terms of expending town resources without, I think, maybe knowing a bit more about this and what the willingness might be, or what the interest might be. But I could certainly, you know, figure out, is this something that you know, is a hard no, we just can't do it, or you know, yes, you can do this, but you need to be aware of these things.
The two companies I talked to, from their perspective, were interested to the point that one of them said, can you, in my position as an alternate member here, I didn't commit to anything, can you draft us a letter of your degree of interest in this? And I said, no, I cannot. So, but I think they may have an interest. And so I think it'd be interesting to get that legal opinion.
Yeah.
And see if there are any impediments to us. And as a last Alamo on this thing, we could maybe be a educational resource to the town.
Yeah. Yep.
If we can do that, that might be valuable, just to people make their own decisions whether they want to do it or not.
Right. Well, I mean, certainly, I think it's something that the town council would support, is, you know, given the strain on budgets, given the inflationary conditions that we've been experiencing, the cost of energy last season, and, you know, the number of elderly residents that we have who are on a fixed income. I think this hits all of those, and I think if it could be done, would certainly be something that is seen as worth doing.
I'd be cautious about recommending a specific dealer
Right.
as opposed to, you know, sort of sending people to information.
Correct.
Public information that is available to all and everybody, once you know it's there.
You know, unless there was maybe some offering from these, I'm going to call them aggregators, from want of a better word, private companies, where they said, hey, if you are in Londonderry, we'll give you half price on your entry fee into this.
Put that up on the website.
That's what I'm saying. And you could offer that up and make that public knowledge, and, or if we're giving everybody else X dollars per gallon for heating oil, but if you're a member of the Londonderry community and you personally commit, we'll give you Y number of dollars, which is slightly less.
That sounds a lot less involved than kind of sponsoring a program like
Right.
this. I mean, that's where these legal questions, I think, become significant. But if it's as simple as publicizing what's otherwise available, that's absolutely permissible.
Taking a less simple road, can a town government make a profit on a business?
The
Like a water company or an oil company?
I mean, so I would reframe the question. A town government has to have a public purpose.
Right.
So we couldn't, you know, be in the steel fabrication business. I mean, that's not a legitimate public purpose.
The oil business to help the townspeople offset their, you know, whatever. But I'll let you take care of that.
Yeah, I mean, we do bring in, you know, revenues. I mean, we bring in motor vehicle revenue, we bring in rooms and meals revenue from the state, we bring in, you know, interest on our investments, we collect revenues at the drop-off center.
Doggy license.
But those are dog licenses, but those are really used to offset expenses. And I can't think of an example where the town has gone into a private line of work, business.
Not to burn you down,
Yeah.
just kind of like, take it one step further.
Yeah, and there are other agencies at the state level and all that could help people who cannot afford fuel.
Right.
Fuel assistance and so forth and so on.
I think it'd be better to inform the general public,
Oh, of course.
okay, and not go further, because, you know, if you happen to set up an arrangement with a particular oil company that's gonna give you a break on the oil, there's a little more to think about. You're also gonna have it serviced. You gotta have service, and you're getting the cheapest price, maybe you're not getting the best service either. So I think we might need to be careful about that and just inform people about maybe what's available.
Sure.
Isn't part of our mandate as a utility committee to look at town expenditure for fuel?
Yes.
And police department,
Yes.
like vehicle fuel?
Yeah,
So
yes.
If we're, hold on, if we're looking at fuel purchasing, I mean, if someone is actually, I'm volunteering you for, if someone is looking into fuel purchasing issues, could that person, also look at, you know, how do we buy our fuel? What are our options? Can we contract with BP to buy the you know, what are the options? That's different, but since someone is looking at fuel purchasing, that might be something that is done in parallel. And, you know, the town purchasing is absolutely within the venue of this group to advise.
Yes.
And then if we learn something, it's like, oh, well, you know, that might be something that could be done. You do the same research, but then you get two benefits out of it.
Exactly.
So,
And I would agree that that's right in the wheelhouse.
absolutely, yeah.
So is the consensus that you would like me to get an opinion on the sponsor model, or that are we going to pursue the publicized model?
So what I'd like to do, like to volunteer us to do, is to formulate the questions for you to submit.
Okay, great.
And then I think we can outline it, a couple of different ideas, but come up with a better explanation, but then give those to you, and
Yeah.
you could get an opinion on those.
Perfect.
Frankly, Mike, one of the things I'm thinking about down the road is, once you put in all these water lines, you're probably gonna have to put in some manpower to manage all of those things. And how far down the road are you from having a utility department, for lack of a better word, in town? And would this maybe future think fall under them?
Potentially. I mean, I think that decision hasn't been made yet. I don't think it'll be made for a while. You know, we've studied what rates a town-owned water system could offer. Again, based on certain assumptions that will almost certainly be wrong. And you know, we have some data on that. We have some data on what it would take to acquire the Pennachuck infrastructure in Londonderry, but frankly, I think we're at the stage where it makes all the sense in the world to cooperate with Pennachuck right now. And you know, based on some information that I think will be coming out soon, I think that, you know, the benefits of Londonderry going into the water business may not be what we thought they were just 6 months ago.
It's my understanding Pennachuck is owned by Hudson, I believe, municipality.
Their sole shareholder is the city of Nashua.
Sorry. If they're owned by a municipality, what's the option if Londonderry doesn't want to be, to own our own water business? Could we invest 10% and then get a person on the board for Pennachuck, and then we at least, get, I'm sorry, I was gonna say get under the skirt, but we at least have some visibility as to what's going on, and we at least have a seat at the table. I mean, coming from the business side, that's always, you invest a little bit, you get on the board,
Right.
and then you see what's going on, and
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know enough about their corporate structure to know if that is an option. I think that there are, as I think we've discussed, there are some unique features about their corporate structure that disadvantage them from a tax standpoint, and that affects the rate that's offered in Londonderry. I know that they're looking at those issues, and I know that they're looking at them seriously. I know that their corporate structure is something that they're looking at. And so I think there may be those kinds of opportunities. But I would just emphasize that we're working very well with them. They're working with, in concert with DES as well. And I think there's a lot of room for collaboration here. But I just don't know the answer to the board membership offhand. You can certainly find that out.
Yeah, it's coming from the business side.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
I might mention that Londonderry was part of a water district at one time, along with a lot of other towns, but that kind of fell by the wayside. I don't know if that's something that should be looked at again in the future, because this affects all surrounding towns. The individual town has to make their own decision because it's their town. But being part of a water district does have some advantages.
I'm not familiar enough with what a water district is and what the benefits are to be able to respond to that. I know they exist. My understanding is they typically exist to provide water, but I could be wrong about that.
No, I think you're right about that.
Any other discussions on energy, and then we'll move on to water? Okay. The water subcommittee, I know you had a meeting.
Yeah, we had a meeting on the 21st. We had elections, for officers, discussed ways that we could work with the town. One of the ideas that came up was being a source of information for the community. And one of those ideas was having I'm pretty sure they had a conversation with you, having an interview with town leadership, but providing questions to town leadership so it's not a cold conversation, so you can get more thoughtful answers.
Yep.
Working on questions for that, so it's informative and we can get the best answers possible. And also looking at ways we can act as a resource for the town, which involves us getting very, very, very smart about water at both at the state and national level. So that's something that we're working on to increase our knowledge of the issues. Hopefully we'll be feeding you information instead of asking you for information.
I'm happy to, do the cold call, on the spot questions.
Well, I mean, you're quick on your feet, but we want this to be informative
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
We're going to give you the questions up front.
I won't object.
No, this is
It's like NBC did when they interviewed the president. Yeah, never mind.
We might throw a few surprises in there.
I'm used to it. But no, I appreciate the effort, and I think you're right, that we want the messaging on some of these issues to be just right. And
and
Exactly.
It's to be informative.
Yeah.
You know, if we ask you a question about like the water district,
Right.
and the
And
answer is,
yeah.
well, I don't know.
Right.
That's not helpful if
Right.
we're at the cable system.
Yeah.
We, have a day to do some research or have your people do some research. So it's not to try to play gotcha. It's
Yeah.
to try to, in a dialogue, inform the community on what's going on.
Right, in a medium that is accessible to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Yep, I support that effort. I think as I told Lynn and John, be happy to participate in that.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure you've gotten back and forth. And I think that's all that's it.
Okay, great.
So Lynn, that's the draft of our minutes and stuff. As soon as we get together and make it correct, that's our action plan. I will send it to you for distribution or whatever.
Sure.
Okay.
Yep, great. Yeah, so Mike, so that was the next item on my agenda here, was to talk about that roundtable between the town manager and the water subcommittee to talk about just what's happening, from a community-wide perspective. So thank you for agreeing to do that. I think it's going to be a great idea, and I'd like to see it. I'll be there in the crowd watching, right? We'll have live TV, but I think it's a great idea
Spotlight on you.
to highlight the committee as well and what we do. So I look at it from that aspect as well.
So this might not be the right venue, but asking it as a question, is this the best venue for that, or is there like a,
No, the cable.
Yeah, that would be the
studio.
cable.
Okay,
Cable
perfect,
studio.
perfect.
Yep.
so there's other, okay, we'll
Yep.
Yep,
let's talk about that offline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be produced, and they have a green screen, and it'll look nice.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think first we'll get together, we'll get our questions together, and then we'll go to the cable station and reserve the time and
Yes.
make sure that
Yep.
you're available at that
Yep.
time.
Yeah, we're gonna
I
schedule,
have no problem dealing with the cable station, I know them.
we gotta schedule the editors, the makeup people, the,
Just like the Joe Rogan experience.
Actually, you may have to take a class just so you know what you're doing.
Well, hopefully we'll get some people in there that'll know what they're doing.
Yeah, they do a good job.
They do a good
when I was
job.
cable chairman, the board of selectmen then almost hit the floor when I included in the fees 5% for that studio. What? I said, sorry, you guys signed the contract, you missed the fine print.
And the last item I had underwater is, I had some conversations with Ray, and we had talked about the inadequacy of the master plan at this point in time, giving a vision about the water system, a town-wide water system. If you look at the master plan, and I encourage everybody to look at the master plan at some point in time, it's about, I want to say 170 pages, 150 pages, and there's like one paragraph talking about a water system. And I had a conversation with Art Rugg, who's the chairman of the planning board, and with Ben Bennett, who is the new town planner, last week, and offered our services to help start drafting a water section that we can plug into the next update of the master plan. The master plan is out of date. It needs to be updated. I still don't think it's going to happen next year. It's probably at least 2 years out before it gets updated.
I think we're candidly looking at something that, so the current master plan is really slick, lots of interesting graphics. It went through lots of, charrettes and, drawing on whiteboards, and that was good, and I think that it is out of date, but it's also modern in a way that the zoning ordinance isn't. I mean, in a lot of ways, the zoning ordinance hasn't caught up to the master plan. I think there's a lot in there that anticipated some of the development that's now occurring in town, and that includes the Technology Hill project. It includes the evolution of mixed-use development into something other than retail under residential above. Again, pointing to the Technology Hill project. So I think that there's less to be updated there in terms of land use regulation, particularly identifying areas of growth and areas where we don't want growth. I think there's not quite as much of a lift there as you might think. I don't think it makes sense, and I've talked with the assistant town manager at length about this. This would be under her department. I don't think it makes a lot of sense to shoot for something like we have in place that would cost a bunch of money and would, I think, replicate a lot of the work that was done 10 years ago. And so what we are inching towards, I believe, is something that could be accomplished sooner than the 2-year time frame that you're referencing. Surely it would take 2 years to do something like that. It could be accomplished, at a more reasonable cost, building on what already exists, but also supplementing some of these areas that there just wasn't awareness or interest 10 years ago.
Yep.
And I think that, the master plan has lots of stuff about quality of life in Londonderry and conservation, and I think this is just a segment like that. This is something that really now is part and parcel of what we're wrestling with here in Londonderry, what it means to live in Londonderry, what people want, what people value, and so I think that's kind of our vision of how the master plan process might proceed. And I think that highlighting sewer perhaps is another one. I think the existing master plan talks a lot more about sewer than it does about water.
It does. And we have I don't want to say the current plan in place is a master plan for sewer,
Right.
but sewer has a lot more documentation behind it than water does.
Right, but I think it's great. I think that having this group take the lead on formulating that content makes a lot of sense. And I fully support that.
So, thank you. But so, I think I'm gonna task the water subcommittee to start thinking about that as well. And I think it's a great idea. We have lots of good minds here, so let's put them to use.
And the master plan, just for everybody's awareness here and in the public, is it's available on the website, it's available in the planning department, and it really is worth a read. It's very well done.
Yep.
A lot of it is still relevant, but you can also see areas that just haven't developed the way that we had hoped or that we had thought, and that's good and that's bad.
It's in the planning department, you said?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The library may also have a copy, I don't know.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. Any other topics from the water
That's it from
subcommittee?
water.
Okay. Just moving on to sewer and solid waste, a couple of things happening, just for news. The Household Hazardous Waste Day is coming up in a week and a half. It's Saturday, November 18th, from 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And I think it directly affects water quality, so I think it has a couple of impacts on the town. So, people aren't dumping waste oil out in their backyard or acetone or anything like that. Yes, sir.
What's the Laffa Fields? Because a long time ago it was a bunch of fields, but what, is that the West Road
So
fields?
let's say
Or what's behind us?
Sergeant Road.
Sergeant Road.
Sergeant Road. I stand corrected. Yep, so let your neighbors know if you see anybody, if they have anything they need to get rid of. There's a pretty comprehensive list of what will be accepted on the town website. And just take advantage of it. It's free.
Facebook page,
Yep, and it's free to the town, so take advantage of it. And then the other item is the Department of Public Works is really, and it was in conjunction with the Solid Waste Committee. We collaborated on a waste oil collection. There's a couple of tanks in a small building behind the central fire station, and once a month, there is a collection, 2 hours Saturday morning from 10 to noon, where anybody who has any waste oil, transmission fluid, or anything like that, they can bring it there and get rid of it free of charge. The DPW uses it to help offset the heating costs at the town garage. But we're in a position now where we're looking for volunteers, and the commitment might be 1 Saturday a year, 2 Saturdays a year. The collection is the first Saturday of the month. And there's been a small core group of volunteers over the years, but the group is getting smaller. And so if anybody has any interest to donate a couple of hours on a Saturday morning, once or twice a year, let me know, and we can set you up. So John and I both do it right now at various
What are
times,
the hours on Saturday?
10 to noon.
And what
It's the first-
exactly are we doing?
All you do is somebody shows up. So it's publicized that the event happens the first Saturday of the month, except in January because it's cold out there. And people just show up, you take down their name and address and how much they're getting rid of. You have to do
The
it.
gallon containers, some people actually show up with 5-gallon containers.
Yep.
Can't be leaking.
It can't be leaking. You do a cursory examination to make sure it's not contaminated. And just show people where to dump it. People dump their own.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And at the end of the day, you lock the door, you give the key back to the dispatcher at the fire department, and you go home.
No gasoline.
No
No
gasoline.
antifreeze.
Yep.
Yeah, I assume there's a
Don't mix the
instruction
antifreeze
sheet
with the
for
oil.
volunteers as to do's and don'ts.
Yep.
How do we check the product? I mean, we're not testing it.
No, yeah,
Whatever they say.
you have to use a little bit of common sense. I think that's probably the best way to say it.
Certainly not a match.
Most people are very honest. Most people are very honest. They'll come up and.
Yeah, they're not gonna come if they're
You
gonna
know, I don't know where this came through. It's been sitting in my backyard with an open cap for the last 3 years. We don't want it. It's
Yeah.
probably got water in it.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty straightforward. Listen, I have no mechanical ability at all. I don't know anything about transmission fluid or any of that stuff, and I've done this successfully after, I think, one training program with Lynn. So,
And how does one That's true.
Let me know. Let me know.
Talk to you. Got
Send me a note, and I'll have the Department of Public Works get in touch with you.
So when I do the minutes, I'd like to update that, so it's at the Sergeant Road, and then waste oil collection volunteers needed. I'd like to also put in there who they can contact, because
Sure.
this gets public, so.
Yep, that's fine.
Hey, Lynn, just thinking about this now, maybe a task for this committee. It wouldn't be a bad idea, particularly as we were looking for more volunteers, if we maybe tried to get a little publicity on the next collection, the one that goes on the same day as the hazardous health, and see if we get Londonderry Times or somebody to come over, take a couple of snaps, and put the story out about we do this because it offsets costs for the town, waste oil, and sort of an energy kind of background to the thing. And if you don't mind, I'll reach out and suggest that and see if we can get some interest.
Sure, absolutely.
That's good.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. Any other sewer, solid waste topics for this evening?
Now is a good place, I guess. I just want to point out, and this might be for the water people too, as you guys are putting together things. The Londonderry Environmental Risk Assessment that was done, I don't know if you meant, this is one of the reports you mentioned, but it's on the Conservation Committee website, and it came out March 2023. And it's basically addressing our septic systems, and which in the water quality survey is addressed as one of our main concerns, areas of concerns for our water quality. So that's something that you guys might want to take a look at too. So
Okay.
it's it's, related to sewer because we're mostly septic, right? But I think it would also impact what you guys are putting together for thinking about for the addition to the master plan.
It's good info.
Okay. And it's on the conservation's page?
Yeah, I downloaded the PDF so I can send it out to the committee if you want me to.
So many years ago, when the town was growing in the seventies and stuff like that, the state controlled the master plan for the leach fields and stuff like that. It just dawned on me now, I'm just assuming that they were looking long-term because the leach fields leach forever. And what I hear you saying is it could be a potential problem. Potential. Or it already is.
Well, I think it's one area that they said, if not properly maintained, and it's up to the individual homeowners to have that knowledge for proper maintenance, which, that's hit or miss, right?
Yep.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
Why don't you send me the link, and I'll send it out to everybody.
That'd be great. I think the state updated about 10 years ago, number of households, 2-tank versus 3-tank systems, things like that. The divider system, a sludge tank, yes.
We're on that.
Here's a copy of it.
Yep. Okay, nothing, I assume, with cable and internet. And with that, we move on to the roundtable discussion. And we'll start with Joy. Anything else, Joy?
Nope, nothing else.
Paul?
I'm good.
John?
Always good.
Martha?
Other than I would just want to add that I think that if we can feed some more articles or posts to the Facebook page, our Facebook page, and perhaps articles in the newspaper having to do with mostly water, I think.
Yeah, and anybody that sends stuff onto the Facebook page, it's easy to put it on, and I'll share it with Lynn, and do we vote on what to put on, or we just post?
Let's see what,
We'll discuss.
yeah, we're the administrators, so we just have to make sure that we're not putting something out there that is not relevant and
Right.
that is correct.
So
provides
Lynn and I
correct
will talk
information.
about it, and so if you have something specific that you want to put up, go ahead and email it to me on my town email,
Yeah,
and copy Lynn,
yeah.
Okay,
or send it to Lynn, and he'll send it to me.
okay.
But it'll go through some level of scrutiny. I think we have to do that, we have to do our due diligence.
Okay.
What is the name of the group?
Londonderry Utility Committee. is what it's
Londonderry
called.
Utility.
Utility.
Yeah, I set it up wrong at first, and I can't change the thing. I mean,
What?
I can create a new one as Utilities Committee. But
I'm surprised you
basi-
can't
Oh,
change
yeah,
it.
there it is, okay.
No, it is Londonderry Utility Committee.
Yeah, utilities.
Yeah, on the town website, it goes utility and utilities,
Yes.
Yeah,
because it's
Oh.
different, it's shown both ways, but when I set it up, I set it up as utility. and I was corrected, but I wasn't able to. It's their utilities committee, but then if you click on it, where did I see utility?
Oh, it's been changed.
Right,
Oh,
We can certainly repost or share the, any posts that you want to publicize on the town Facebook page.
absolutely, yeah, okay,
Yep.
good.
Yep, so we did that very successfully with the solid waste committee and all the various town groups that are out there as well, so I thought it worked out very well.
Yeah, so takeaway is if you have anything that you want to post, go ahead and send it to Lynn,
Yep,
and Lynn and I will work and get it up there promptly, and then copy it to Mike or whoever to make sure it's.
whoever we feel is appropriate, I
Yeah.
think is the best way to say it.
I guess where do we get that information of? Where do we get it to post? Like, you had spoken to Ann at one point about, an article that she had told you about, but I never saw that go onto the Facebook.
I haven't received it.
Well, we
Okay,
create our
so-
own.
So basically, I just want to get stuff out there on there. So we gotta,
Keep your eyes open.
everybody has to keep their eyes open,
It could be
everybody.
as simple as we're looking for waste oil collection volunteers. I mean, that might be a good first.
Yep,
That's,
yeah, we even have,
that's a good one.
Mr. Mann even put together a slide talking to that, so we can we can post that slide.
Yeah, I even made a note here, looking at something on water testing education for the Facebook page.
Actually, I'm gonna take my back. I actually had one question. You sent out this document about the New Hampshire Department of Energy newsletter, and in there were two articles about USDA Rural Energy for America programs and USDA High Energy Cost. And I was wondering, reading it is for government, school districts, townships, the idea that John had about solar panels for the parking lot. And I wonder if some of that grant money would be applicable, just a question. So I was looking at it, it does say, it's quite a bit of money, so, just, I don't know if you get the chance to read it, John, so. Yes, no? No? Okay, cool.
Oh, if anybody sees anything of interest, that piques your interest in those newsletters,
Yeah,
raise the question. Is this something that we can go work with?
Yeah, and if you see something on your like daily scan through whatever news sites you look at, just,
Yep.
yep,
copy the link and send it.
yep, okay.
But it was in here, so that's fine.
This Facebook page, can the general public put something on it?
No, they can look at it.
They can only look at it.
They
But
can,
they
can
post.
comment.
They can post, but it has to be approved before it gets posted.
But they can comment, can't they?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so.
I mean,
think
it's
so,
just
yeah.
like a Facebook. It's just like a regular Facebook.
Yeah, but,
I mean, I did put
some people
something
put a
out
lot
there
of
that I
things on
don't know
there.
if I went through all those procedures. Because you sent me a thing to be an administrator, so I thought I could just put something, that it was basically just introducing us and what we're doing.
Is it all funky now? I'll look at it when I get home.
Okay,
I'll take an action to look at the Facebook page
Okay.
and add that to my like bi-weekly
yeah,
review of.
The constantly evolving Facebook page.
Yes, I will proactively look at that daily now, I guess.
Yeah, there's 3 posts, starting in May, one in October.
From who?
From the committee.
Oh,
Yeah, we haven't been
from
very
when?
prolific with
Yeah.
it.
When
The
put-
the committee, the committee.
The committee?
Has Ray Breslin on it.
Anything, okay, so I'll take my next swag here at the round table and answering a question that John just asked as well. So right now, I'm tentatively meeting with the school board on the 28th of this month, and they were the ones looking at collaborating with us on solar panels and solar installations. So they would be going off and doing their own funding and that type of thing as well, or their own grant applications as they determine to be appropriate. But, so I'm meeting with them at the
I did-
invitation of Bob Slater, so I think it's going to be good.
I did take a ride down to Stonyfield because we had mentioned that there's not
I
there.
haven't seen it there either,
No.
yeah. Yep, so I'm not sure there are any in town at this point in time. I've seen them, but I haven't seen them in Londonderry.
Right.
So that'll be happening on the 28th, assuming that they have space on their agenda and that we'll be there. Jeff?
No comment.
John?
I know cable internet is dormant as somewhat dormant as a subcommittee, but speaking as someone whose wife has told him he spends more time with the television than he does with her, just, do we have we looked at the impact of everyone, or many cutting the cable now, and what the impact will be on the cable TV center and some of the ongoing things that we get through our relationship with the cable TV provider?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know when the franchise agreement is next up. I think it's got another couple of years at least. I mean, I can tell you in terms of, and so from the revenue standpoint, I don't know the answer to that. What I can tell you is that the cable center is moving in that direction already. They've stood up a YouTube, and you know, the cable director is, I think, taping this right now. He'll certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but they've made improvements to YouTube. They're taking advantage of the YouTube platform now, which is nice because as somebody who likes to sometimes look at the town council meetings quickly after I get home at night, after the town council meeting, they're not always up on the website immediately, but they're always up on YouTube or right away, so you can access them a little bit more quickly.
And you can fast forward and back up.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, and thank you to the gentleman, because he did download for me so I could do that. Otherwise, I'm not doing good.
But no, I mean, I think that they're really, and this is the cable director saying, our revenue has remained stable, but we are continuing planning for the future in a number of ways. So I would agree with that. I would concur that they are very forward-looking. They're always looking to do new things. And I think that they probably have thought a lot more about that than I have.
Geez, with that answer, the cable director could be a candidate for the town manager position.
You know what? I've got plenty of people who have opinions about what I'm doing and not doing. So we can include him in that.
You can check it on Facebook page.
Right.
Question? Where would one find the current cable agreement?
That is a good question. It's probably somewhere with my office, but it's probably worth dusting off and taking a look at it. So I
Could
can
you send it to
circulate
us?
that. Yep,
Thank you.
that's a good idea.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. You guys signed it 2 years ago now, so I didn't get quite to see that one.
Ray?
Because the important piece of that revenue thing is, even though people are jumping off and doing streaming, they still need internet access. And until the telephone companies up the lines to fiber, it's going to be a locked system for them. So we just have to make sure our contract includes the cable streaming, that's all. But yes, good idea.
I'm asking.
I know.
I have another question for Mike.
I can read his mind.
Does the town currently have a current groundwater protection ordinance?
I believe it does. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe there is some kind of protection that was just enacted in the last year or two.
Yeah, I thought
Memory
so.
serves. Yeah.
Well, it was proposed in January of 2022 with a couple of options. And I don't know what was decided. If you could,
I'll get an
Let me
answer on
know
that
that.
definitively. Yep,
I'd appreciate it.
yep, absolutely.
All set?
Huh?
Anything else?
Well, you got my questions, but we don't have to go into them now.
Yeah. So round tables, just, if you have any ideas or thoughts that weren't on the agenda, so.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, that's
Okay.
fine.
Ron?
That's fine.
Yeah, I got a couple of things. Some updates from the state. 160 poets have been installed in Londonderry. 119 of those are complete. What that means is that the water test has come back with a non-detect. We still have 41 homes that remain on bottled water that are going to get poets.
Are those homes within the consent decree?
Yes.
Okay.
These are all within the sanctuary. And 302 properties are the ones that are waiting on the water line connection, and they are still on bottled water. Just a quick update there. I was also able to go to the local energy solutions conference, so anyone that likes some information, I have some really good information from that conference. A lot of good local energy committees, utility committees, they call them different things in different towns and cities. One suggestion I would have is if we have questions, we might reach out to some of those utility committees, energy committees that have done a lot of this work already. Bethlehem made a really good presentation at this meeting, and their big thing was that they're 100% solar on all their properties in town, and they went through a whole elaborate process of how they got there. And I think we could learn a lot if we had any questions to reach out to other utility committees, and I'd be happy to facilitate that for anybody. But a really, really good conference. There was energy providers, local towns, local municipalities there. Everybody kind of was there participating. A lot of good breakout sessions. Another good thing I got from there, I was going to give to Mike to see if we get copies of it for everybody, is New Hampshire Saves has a lot of good programs. They're constantly changing, so their recommendation was to always check their website. But they've got a lot of things that they do for municipalities, and I have our contact here in town on this paper. So anything that you guys need from there, I can provide that.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay. Anything else before we call it a meeting?
Next meeting.
Next meeting is December 5th, 2023.
Oh, wait a minute.
I'll be out of
I
town.
thought of something.
State.
I think it's important for all of us to pay attention to what's happening up to Concord. In other words, legislation. What legislation has been filed and potentially is going to be moving forward, and I think we should pay attention to that. Particularly, I'm thinking about water, but it could be other things too. It could be about energy, power, whatever. I just think it's important, and some of us work and some of us don't, but some of us don't have the time to be going up there to actually participate. But you can support legislation by writing something or sending an email, whatever, that you want to support this particular legislation, and that can make a difference. So I just wanted to say that.
Great, thank you.
I would just point out that, it's been my experience that our elected representatives are very responsive to not only written communication, but just, hey, Councilor Dunn, there's this important water bill that's pending. Do you know anything about it? I remember talking to you about the water crossing bill.
Yeah.
What's the likelihood of this passing? What's the timeline? And that, he had that information within a day or two. He sponsored bills that have been important to Londonderry in that regard. So I think that, I spoke with the Speaker of the House last week about water. Those connections are there. We do sometimes feel removed from it. I know I do, because, you've got a lot of other balls in the air. But that's one of the nice things about New Hampshire is that, there's easy access to our legislators. At least from my experience, the Londonderry's delegation is more than willing to discuss these issues. They're actually eager to assist. And so I think that's something nice about New Hampshire and about Londonderry.
Great.
But I'm referring to citizens' participation, okay? I mean, our legislator, our representatives go up to Concord, they put forth legislation, but that doesn't mean it's going to pass.
Right.
Citizens' participation makes a difference, and that's really important. If a legislative representative can say, or a senator can say, hey, I've got all these people in my town that want this bill to pass. Look at, they wrote in here, okay? That can make a difference.
Absolutely. Okay, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Jeff,
Second?
second by Martha. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is unanimous, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it.